petition, and we'll go ahead and get this started. So if you'll go ahead and stand and we'll pray. Dear God, please help to guide us and give us direction as we speak here today for truth and opportunity for a healthy society, that we can protect what is right, to do your will in everything that we do. Please give us the words for our speakers today. Please guard our hearts to do what we need to do that is right for society. We pray this in your name. Amen. Amen. And Justin, will you come up and lead us in the pledge allegiance? The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to start with some members of the community here. So let's go ahead and start with Rick Sadler. Do you want to come on up and say a few words, please?
As she said, my name is Rick Sadler. I appreciate you guys all coming out here today. I'm not a public speaker, but I'm trying. By the end of this whole thing, I'm sure I'll be really good at public speaking. As you can see, I'm a vet, and I'm proud of it. I haven't served in Afghanistan or Iraq or any place like that. I was in the Cold War. I was in Germany, and we were waiting for the Russians to come through the Folded Gap. So, you know, it was different then than it is now. President Reagan was the president. We cared about our military. We cared about our troops. I mean, that's just a given. Now we have Ford, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, MEDA, and some of our local officials that want to do the opposite. They want to weaken our national security. CATL, or CATL, the Chinese company, will be technical advisors. Yeah, sure they will. The Chinese government requires its citizens to report or basically spy on countries that they go to. The placement of this site was no accident. It's 11.6 miles as the crow flies to the National Guard or the National Guard base and the Air National Guard base, and less than that to the Federal Center down in Battle Creek. Why? To gather information about our national security. Why is this acceptable? Communist China is not a friend. The spy balloon and all the stuff that's been going on lately is proof of that. And we call on the governor, MEDA, and our town, and our own homegrown company, Ford, to do the right thing, the American thing, the patriotic thing, and cancel this project. I'm sorry, again, no public speaking. I'm tired. The country is tired. Bit by bit, our leaders have chipped away at our military and our national security. We owe it to the servicemen and women, and we owe it to the country to say enough. No more selling our national security all in the name of profit. It stops.
Thank you so much, Rick. Next, we have Joan Chapman. Come on up and let's say a few words.
Good day, friends. And you all are my friends now. Thank you so much. I'm going to speak from a very unique perspective that my husband and I have, because we are the only ones on C Drive who have not signed an option to buy. We don't sign contracts without information, and we were not given that information when asked. And I want to talk to you today about loss, because this is a story about loss. People don't want to believe that. They think it's gain. It's loss. Our personal loss, we've lost our feeling of security at home because we live there. We live there. We've lost our view. We feel like we've lost some of our friends already because they think we're foolish. But I can't. We can't lose our community. We can't lose our small town. And that's what it feels like. The community loss is already showing by division. We're dividing in this community. People who say, we're conspiracy theorists, we're crazy, let progress happen. But what does it cost? What are we going to lose? We're going to lose quality of life, people. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by that. I have lost trust in our local government. And I know you all sitting here who've been at the meetings, not looking at us at the township when we speak, telling us at the commissioners, county commissioner, to lead, follow, or get out of the way. What is that? That's very condescending. People downtown, the businesses are like, yay, we're going to have more people, more business. No, that's not what's going to happen. Ford is going to have probably a cafeteria for their employees to eat. They're not going to come downtown. And if you're paying a little more at the Ford plant than you are working in a store downtown, these people might flock out there and you're going to lose employees. We already have a labor shortage. Look it up. Look it up. And jobs lost from Eaton and State Farm. That was a long time ago. My husband worked at Eaton. We're still here. It's the only job he has not commuted from. We moved here in 1985 and lived in the south side of town. My husband worked in Jackson and lived in Kalamazoo, so we chose Marshall. We chose Marshall, are we listening to that? Chose Marshall because it was a small town, and it was between. And we have loved this town, but we feel like we're losing it. If this plant comes in, we're gonna lose our water quality, our air quality. That's just not us, that's just not the township. The wind blows this direction. It's a loss. I'm a little concerned, a lot concerned, about our national security. I say, this is a little town. I never, ever thought Marshall would be affected by communist China. But let me tell you, if someone tells you they're not here or they're not coming, that is not true. Monday morning, I was not there. My husband was home alone. And the communist propaganda channel was standing across from our house. Now you tell me they're not coming. They're not here. They're just going to advise. That isn't true. Don't believe it. And Rick already spoke about the base and everything. What I don't want people to lose is insight. They told us at the county commission meeting, stop talking about what ifs. Stop that. But that's how you plan anything. What if? What if? What if? We've got to look at what ifs. This town needs to look at what ifs. And don't think it's a done deal. Because there's people that you don't know that are working. And here's a big group of people that are. And we care. We don't want to lose. So tell me, people that are for it, what are the gains? Because I don't see any.
Next we have Glenn Kowalski.
Hello, probably met most of the people in this room at one of our many public meetings, and so I'll be brief. The current federal government sent trillions of dollars to the 50 states and local communities. The state of Michigan was faced with an unprecedented task: how to spend all of these billions of dollars. It was then that the plot was hatched to secretly start funneling money out to organizations like MIADA, Marshall Area Economic Development Alliance, in an effort to secure land for industrial plants. Through the manipulation of the SOAR program and through the MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, the state has poured money into MIADA to purchase up to 2,000 acres of land in Marshall Township they call the mega site. Now we find out that likely this was against the Michigan Constitution. it seems wise to require 2/3 of the legislature to appropriate funds to local or private purposes. The Maeda Board of Directors is made up of Calhoun County, City of Marshall, and Marshall Township board members and officials, as well as other organizations, business owners, real estate agents, and managers. A lawyer from Maeda that sits on the Marshall Township Planning Commission was soliciting the purchase of property. No real effort was made by these representatives to gather input from local residents prior to them embarking on the creation of the largest industrial site in modern Michigan history. Neither did they keep us informed of the Maeda actions. We have made our voices heard since the beginning of the year, and they have not been quieted. We have formed an organization that seeks to offset the special interests of business owners and politicians in the preservation of farmland, our way of life and community, and create a new recreation land that we can all use. From the immortal words, from the immortal refrain yelled by anchorman Howard Beale in the 1976 film Network, "We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore."
That was awesome. Thank you, Glenn. Julie Bryant, can you come on up?
Hello, everybody. How do you follow that? My name is Julie Bryant, and 3 years ago, my husband and I chose to move to Squaw Creek in Marshall Township. We wanted to be in the country, see the stars, and hear the beautiful Squaw Creek that sounds like a bubbling brook. So obviously, we're against the mega site. Has repeatedly stated at township, city, and county meetings, all of which we are not being heard. For our national security, why isn't our governor, our city leadership, our township, or even Maeda concerned? This project is receiving a lot of scrutiny on the national level. It was reported February 16th that Senator Rubio, ranking Republican of the Senate Intelligence Committee, announced that they would be looking into the licensing agreement between China and Ford. Now we also have the Michigan House Freedom Caucus here today, and they have also come out that they are opposed. Thank you. We have within 11 miles. We have within 11 miles a sensitive mission air National Guard base, and we also have the Hart Dual Inouye Federal Center in Battle Creek. Even if the Chinese are supposed to be technical advisors, the fact that they would be so close to sensitive installations is very troublesome. Also, I believe, and Joan, I don't know if you mentioned this, we're starting to see on Indeed ads for Chinese nannies for Marshall, paying $25 to $30 an hour, which is more than the people in the plant would be paid. There are so many reasons why this isn't a good fit for historic Marshall. Excuse me for this list because I'm just very passionate about this. Besides the billions of your hard-earned tax dollars, you know, that is going to China and Ford for a new EV plant. We have Indian burial grounds and settlements. We would have air pollution, watershed issues, ground pollution, possible repollution of the Kalamazoo River that was poured over 800,000 gallons of oil in about 12 years ago by Enbridge. ground pollution, protected species habitats that are there and that we feel have, maybe some have been destroyed already on C Drive. Loss of over 100-year-old farmsteads that should be on the historic registry for Marshall. The fact of how legal are these 425 agreements have been. Marshall cannot supply all the utilities to that project, and I believe that I had understood that was part of the agreement. There's been secrecy. There's been non-disclosure agreements from Lansing all the way down. But the granddaddy of them all is our national security. We owe it to our servicemen and women to stop the China Ford megacide. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And our last community member, Ben Lark.
Morning. I'm a lifetime resident of Calhoun County. I'm a 50-year resident of Marshall, and this morning I've been asked to read a letter that was sent to the governor of Michigan by 8 representatives of the House of Representatives. So this letter is to Governor Whitmer. Michigan is home to hundreds of thousands of veterans who valiantly serve our armed forces to protect our country and defend our freedoms. Many of these men and women have bravely given their lives to fight against tyrannical communist rule. That's why it was particularly difficult to hear about your efforts to lure a Chinese Communist Party linked company to Michigan. The Chinese government exerts totalitarianism rule over every business in its country. That you would like to welcome contemporary amperage technology to our state and offer it loads of taxpayer money to put down roots here is inconceivable. It's even more incredible that you would consider doing so following the brazen actions of the Chinese Communist Party violating U.S. airspace for surveillance activities. As the veterans who now serve our great state in the Michigan House of Representatives, we have a vested interest in doing what is right for the future of our state. We ask that you end your discussions with this company, and we strongly object to using any taxpayer dollars to fund the Chinese Communist Party's efforts to expand its destructive influence in the United States. Inviting the Chinese Communist Party to play a role in the production of American electric batteries for vehicles is a bad move that stands to threaten the economic stability and security of our state and our country. We strongly urge you not to give our giant adversary a foothold in Michigan. It's signed by those 8 state representatives.
We've got our first member of the Michigan House Freedom Caucus speaking today, and that is Representative Rochelle Smith.
Good morning. My name is Rochelle Smith, State Representative, and I am a proud member of the Michigan Freedom Caucus. I represent counties of Barry, Allegan, Ottawa, and Eaton. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for caring about the future of Michigan. When I heard about this new manufacturing plant, I was happy at first. I was happy for the jobs I was told that would come to this plant. I was happy for the tax revenue that would come to a part of the state that needs it. I was happy for the opportunities that this project represents. But as a conservative, I knew that the most dangerous phrase that you can ever hear is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
Absolutely.
When government picks which businesses are going to win, we all lose. And when governments give hundreds of millions of dollars to their friends and allies, we all lose. When government robs Peter to pay Paul, we all lose. And who is the real beneficiary of all of the Michigan taxpayer money? It turns out that the person making all of the profits is a company ultimately owned and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. When I was told that we were voting on something that would help rural Michigan, I was excited to support. When I realized that we were bailing out a failing business owned by foreign communists, I was not excited and I was not in support. What is going on here, and why in the world would we support this insanity? Michigan tax dollars, money taken from working men and women in this state, should go to benefit Michigan-owned businesses and operations that are aligned with freedom and liberty. We should be given money to the businesses that match our Michigan values, run by our hard-working Michigan men and women for the benefit and the profits of our state. That we would enrich a foreign country is obscene and immoral. And it is an insult to every working man and woman in our state. I did not, and I will never support deals such as this. I am for America first, and I am for Michigan first, always.
And next we have Representative Neil Frisk to come talk about this.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. On behalf of the Freedom Caucus, we appreciate the overwhelming support. As was mentioned, my name is Representative Neil Frisky. I'm from the 107th District, so I represent northern Michigan. I have a couple counties in the Lower Peninsula and a couple counties in the Upper Peninsula. For those that don't know, I am not a big fan of Communist China. Not only has the recent spending that terrorizes the people of Marshall been corporate welfare, which I am also firmly against, it is also unconstitutional and treasonous. Our state constitution in Michigan affirms that all corporate welfare needs a 2/3 vote in the legislature to be handed out. But our Democrat-led House and Senate have been handing out billions of dollars to their corporate donors with a slim majority vote. What's even worse, establishment uniparty Republicans have been letting them get away with it. Isn't it already bad enough that the government is throwing away your hard-earned tax dollars? On top of that, they're doing it illegally. The ultimate sin of it, though, is that Ford is contracting this plant out to a communist Chinese state-owned battery manufacturer. I don't know about you, but I thought we won the Cold War 30 years ago. I also don't think our founding fathers intended for our tyrants in charge to dish out billions of dollars to their donors. I don't think our founding fathers would have given a penny to a war criminal communist regime. If anything, Lansing should be demanding $800 million from China in reparations for its role in COVID-19. Whitmer and her ally, Xi Jinping, should be answering for the thousands of nursing home victims that they murdered. When will we see accountability for this illegal corruption from our Attorney General? We the people are sick and tired of this Marxist abuse of power. Recently, I enrolled a bill to ban Communist China from buying Michigan farmland. Meanwhile, the Democrats and several weak Republicans voted to give your money to Communist China instead. How about we give China nothing? In fact, we should be actively regaining ground from China. We must regain control of our farmland, our industry, our sovereignty, and our culture from this communist threat. Our freedom, our security, and our very way of life are at risk. God willing, the tide will turn, and patriots will be back in control one day. And eventually, our republic will be returned to the people, and Marxism will be defeated. Thank you all. Never give in, never give up, and God bless.
And next we have Senator Jonathan Lindsay.
Thanks, honey. So I'm Senator Jonathan Lindsay. I'm not part of the Freedom Caucus, but they let me hang out with them sometimes. It's a great group. There's so much to say about this, and I just want to talk about a few things that changed what my remarks were going to be, because we had a couple of people focus in on this issue of not just national security, but thinking about this theme of the men and women who serve the country and kind of what our obligations are, or how we should think about our actions in government if we really value the service that they've done. So, I live really close to here. I'm not actually, by the way, in my district, but I do serve a portion of Calhoun County. I have Lee, Marengo, Eckford, Sheridan, Clarendon, Albion, and Homer, as well as the city of Albion and Homer, just in Calhoun. And then I've got parts of 7 counties to go across the state. And I say that I haven't campaigned in this area. Some people might not know some of my background, but I served in the Army for a while. I served for 7 years as part of the U.S. Army Special Forces. A lot of people know them better as the Green Berets. I did 3 deployments overseas. One of them was in Afghanistan, and while I was there, I was the only person on my team who actually learned the language, one of the languages of the locals there. And that put me in a sometimes fortunate position, sometimes it just created more work, where I would be the one to go sit down and talk with local leaders, be able to have dinner with them and talk about what was going on. And it led to a lot of curious conversations where I would learn more than I thought I was going to. And one example was I was talking to some local leaders about an area we patrolled, that we would go past this area and we would never actually go up into one particular site. And I started talking with them about it, and I said, what is up there? Why don't we go up in this area? If I should pause. And they said, oh, that's where the mine is. And I said, oh, the mine? You guys have a good mine here? What do you mine? Oh, we don't mine. Oh, so is it closed down? No, it's operating. So who's mining it? Does anybody want to guess? China. Right? Do you think that China, do you think the Chinese Communist Party or the PLA had security forces on the ground taking the risk for what was going on there? No. We were the security force. Right? We were in an area where I think the average was about 1 IED per day, that not, me or my team hitting, but in that area, our forces were coming across about 1 IED per day. We were spending our blood and treasure securing a Chinese mine. Think about it. Right? I mean, they're very aggressive all around the world doing these things. So I just wanted to tie that back. I mean, now when I go up to the Senate, every day I have sitting on my desk, it's common to put something meaningful on your desk. Some people choose certain flags. The Democrats like to have, they have to update it every day because they have a new gender identity flag that gets, it gets modified and then they need to replace it and put it. I have 3 memorial bracelets sitting on my desk of men that I served with that are dead. And every time that I vote, I look at them first. I I don't know where they would stand on these issues. I know they lost their lives doing things that were absolutely insane. Policy of the U.S. government that did not actually protect America, did not actually put America first, did not actually think about our communities. So bringing it back to what we're dealing with here, this appropriations bill, or part of it for this mega site, came in front of the Senate, and I had the opportunity to force a vote on an amendment on this. And what I put forward was a pretty simple amendment. Some people wanted it to be more aggressive, just ban the project, but I said, look, we'll at least give people an opportunity to see if they're serious about this. Ford says there's no concern here. Local government says there's no concern, there's nothing to think about here. The Democrats say there's nothing to be worried about. So I said, let's require, before we spend Michigan taxpayer dollars on this project, let's require a basic national security review. Let's require a review to make sure that taxpayer dollars are not going to end up benefiting the army of the Chinese Communist Party. This was not a ban. This was not stopping the project. Some people here might be mad because I didn't just say stop the project, but I said let's do a review. Let's require a review to make sure that your taxpayer dollars are not going to go to fund slave labor in China, right? And I was able to force a record roll call vote of this, and all 20 of the Democrat senators voted against this basic common sense review, right? But I'll tell you, I'm even more concerned because while I was very proud that all 18 Republicans stood up and voted for that, for a lot of Republicans across the state, the fact that the Democrats were not willing to do a basic national security review of this project doesn't matter to them. For me, I said, okay, you won't do the review? Then I'm out. This is done. Right? There's no reason to move forward on a project like this if the people behind it can't go along with at least a simple review to protect our national security. Right. But what we see is a lot of local leaders who are saying, well, what are you worried about? What are you worried about? Right? It's very hard to take those people seriously. We just shot down how many? We don't actually know how many spy balloons we shot down, right? Because our military under Biden is so inept that I think sometimes we were shooting down party balloons. They got mixed up. They didn't know what they were doing. At least one, right? So the last thing I want to say on that, that's sort of on the national security piece. I know that also came up in the House. I commend the Freedom Caucus for leading the charge over there. I'll continue to focus on these sorts of issues in the Senate. But I also just want to highlight another broken aspect of government that this project highlighted. And that's that the decision for this to happen, for the taxpayer dollars, however much it ends up being, first it was $1 billion, and then 1.8, and now it'll end up being who knows what when it's all done. But the decision to spend those dollars and support this project was done. I mean, it was done. It was final before there was ever a vote in the legislature. Right. Yeah. Right. Clearly, and we will probably never get the answer to this, but clearly, Gretchen Whitmer, Governor Whitmer, made this decision. I don't know if she shook hands directly with Xi when she was doing it or if it was somebody else, but they have such confidence that government can run without any feedback from the people at this point. That they can make these decisions and they can move forward. And that whatever the people's body in the House, the Senate, the representatives, whatever we think, whatever local government thinks, whatever the people think, is at this point effectively irrelevant. Once the deal has been made, they can do it. And they've so far proven that they're basically right on that. That's one thing I want to encourage people to think about, how broken our government is right now. These decisions were made months ago. Everything that's happened since then has been sort of smoke and mirrors to say there's going to be a vote, there's going to be a meeting in the town, but it was done. This was demonstrated in a committee in the Senate this week when Democrats in the Senate were asking the head of the MEDC how it is that these stories were being printed before there was ever a vote to give out this money. Think about it. Even the Democrats in the Senate are getting upset at the fact that Whitmer can make a deal to spend billions of our dollars, and we have no effective say in it. So I encourage you all to continue to stay involved. Certainly support these members in the Freedom Caucus that are standing up strongly, and make your voices heard. Reach out to me. Very, very last thing is that I am working with some people who used to work in Pompeo's State Department. He was really taking a leadership role tackling the threat of the CCP on everything from infiltrating academia to doing these sorts of deals. And we are looking for people locally related to these these projects, local stakeholders who are willing to get involved maybe in a formal way at a national level to highlight this and bring the voice of, not just people who are in government talking about it, but people like you. So if you're interested in that, feel free to connect with me afterwards. Thank you all again. God bless you. God bless Michigan. God bless America. Let's save them.
And lastly, the guy who spearheaded all this, Representative Steve Carr.
Well, a bunch of wonderful speeches and great testimony from the community. Thank you everybody again for coming out here. I'm Chair State Representative Steve Carr of the Michigan House Freedom Caucus, and it's an honor to be here with all of you today. And we actually have people, I believe, coming from all sides of different aisles in this room here. We heard good arguments about the environment and concerns about the environment from what's going on here. Just the general atmosphere in general, people who want to live in a small town USA, and now they have an industrial park that's changing the atmosphere around them. We have national security risks that were brought up. And even when you get down into the economics of it, if you're going to talk about billions of dollars coming to a small town like Marshall, it seems like people could at least be on the same page that that would be good economically if it was. But there's serious questions about that. Because what about small business owners who might lose an employee because they get billions of dollars in corporate handouts, and that makes it easier for them to pay an employee at this company, not off of free markets and equal opportunity, but because they're given a special deal. So I feel for the small business owners in this community who are going to lose out on loyal employees who are going to decide to take a different job instead. So we can't even agree on the economics locally, and rightfully so. But this costs, for every $1 billion from the state, it costs $100, because there's 10 million people times 100. $100 for every $1 billion from the state, every man, woman, and child. So a family of 5 has to pay $500 for this corporate company to get a special deal. That's unacceptable. That's inappropriate. How do the people in Traverse City feel about this? I'd be furious. How do the people in the Upper Peninsula feel about this? They don't get any benefits from this. What about in my district in St. Joseph and Cass County, the Southwest, where I live just about an hour away, but how does this benefit my community? I don't even think it benefits your community. What this benefits is Ford. It benefits the partnership with China, with the Chinese Communist Party, and it benefits special interest groups. This is absolutely inappropriate. This is a redistribution of wealth from the hardworking middle class to the politically connected. And this is the types of games that government continues to play, picking the winners and losers. We saw another bill that passed that gave $200 million to a paper mill in the Upper Peninsula. Now, if you were to say you have a small business, you had somebody working there for 15 years, you just gave them a pay raise to $60,000 a year, and now this paper mill gets hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate handouts, and they say, hey, Mr. Employee, why don't you come work over here? We'll pay you $90,000, give you all kinds of wonderful benefits. What's that going to do for Escanaba Township up in their area? Small businesses are going to suffer because of it in their community. It's the corporate elite who benefits. This relationship between big government and big business needs to stop. Back in the 1960s, the top CEOs got paid about 55 times as much as their lowest paid employees. 55. Today, well actually in 2007, it's a little bit of an old statistic by this point, it was 542 times as much as their lowest paid employee. By this point, we've got to be pretty close to 1,000 times, if not more. It's a statistic I'm going to want to look into further. But this isn't because of free markets. A lot of these large corporations want their industries to be regulated. because it crowds out competition from their small business competitors. If their small business competitors are busy doing red tape and paperwork and spending so much of their time and energy on that, it's a small price to pay to be in compliance with regulations for a large corporation to have a monopoly or an oligopoly on the process. So what we're seeing continuously, not just in America, but throughout the world, is an economic atmosphere that benefits a ruling elite. And I believe the leader of our state is trying to prove herself to her friends. She has friends at the World Economic Forum. You know, she was a guest speaker there. She has to prove herself to George Soros, and she needs to prove herself to the ruling elite around the world. That's what she's trying to do to step up her political career. It's unacceptable regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. This wasn't just a Democrat issue, and I do want to give a shout out to one Democrat, because there's 56 Democrats and 54 Republicans in the Michigan House. There's one Democrat who has stood strong consistently this year and opposed corporate welfare. I disagree with him on many issues, but he sticks to his convictions. He sticks to his principles. He does not cave. He had so much pressure put on him by his party because they needed his vote to have the Democrats united. They couldn't lose one and still have a majority. 55 is a majority and they wouldn't have the votes. He voted no. Consistently, not just for the Upper Peninsula for the paper mill, not just for here with Marshall. 3 times he stood strong. So they've needed Republican votes. And they've gone behind closed doors. And they found ways to get those Republican votes. And it is absolutely disgusting. What we had last term when the Republicans had control of the House and Senate is we had all kinds of corporate welfare, which is brought to you by who? The Republican Party. They had control. We had the Speaker of the House. We had the Senate Majority Leader. Republicans brought you corporate welfare. Now that Democrats have the House, Senate, and Governor, they're the ones leading the charge bringing you corporate welfare. It's a problem on both sides of the aisle. This is a fight between the little guy, the middle class, the hardworking people, and the special interest groups and the ruling elites. What we just had with the vote here, what's impacting Marshall, this isn't just a Marshall vote. This isn't just a Michigan vote. This was not a vote that just impacts the United States. It impacts humanity around the world. It's that catastrophic. It's that good. So the vote, we had 59 total votes in support of House Bill 4016 in the House. 59, and we had 49 no's. There were 2 who didn't vote. You need a 2/3 majority in order to appropriate funds for private purposes. Our government is acting as if 59 votes was sufficient because it was a simple majority. But the Michigan Constitution in Article 4, Section 30, and I told media with the Michigan House Freedom Caucus, we tried a different day to bring this to light, to tell people in society about what's going on with the violation of the Michigan Constitution. Because 59 votes is not 2/3. Right. To me, it failed. It didn't get the threshold. And even if it did get the threshold of 2/3, it shouldn't anyway, because it's not equal opportunity. We're supposed to be a country that believes in freedom and equal opportunity for all Americans, not to give them a special deal. That's not equal protection under the law. But they didn't get the 2/3 vote. And what are we going to do about it? Well, it says private purposes. Would you all think that this is a private purpose to give one company a special deal? Is that a private purpose? Yes. Yes, it is a private purpose if you ask me. But they call it a public purpose. They say that because it helps everybody in the community. Money that goes to MEDC and then is dispersed from MEDC or the SOAR fund to multiple different companies in different parts of the state, and because of that it helps the general public at large. Or things of the $200 million to the paper mill in the Upper Peninsula, that's an even bigger problem because that didn't even go to the MEDC or SOAR fund. But regardless, this is not public purpose, this is private purpose. What we had is back in the 1800s is they said that the government could hand out for a 4-H club or actually for a VFW hall. There were a couple where the early ones setting precedent to give certain tax dollars to certain circumstances. And then in 1947 they expanded it for an economic development issue over in Kalamazoo. And they've used that to make the argument that this is a public purpose. So say up in the paper mill one, they'll say things in the bill like every single paper mill that exists in Escanaba Township as of January 1st, 2023 is eligible for $200 million. So it's all the paper mills in the community, in that one township. Gets that your tax dollars. That's $20 from every single man, woman, and child, on average, in Michigan, for that paper mill. Are you happy that you had $20 go to that paper mill in Upper Peninsula? Did that help you? No, that private company should build their own plant, they should sell their own product, and they should get profits off of the free market, not off of you guys funding their operations.
Right.
That's the proper role in society. But because they said it was all of the paper bills in the township, even though there's just one, that was their loophole. That's not what the Michigan Constitution's about. That's not what Article 4, Section 30 was written for. We should demand that we don't circumvent the Michigan Constitution. We should demand that we protect equal opportunity for everybody, not picking these winners and losers, and not taking your hard-earned money and giving it to the politically connected. This is unacceptable, and I thank you all for coming out here and fighting to defend your community, our state, our nation, and all of humanity. With that, I'll turn it over to questions.
So the 26th of March to get a referendum petition in. Presumably it was the enactment. I really haven't been able to find the I asked for the city-approved petition form for referendum. She said there wasn't any, so I have to compose it, and I've already done that. If you guys really want to get going on this, right after this, let's go to the library. We can make copies. 20 people getting 30 signatures of registered voters would be enough to get a referendum going. So the power of this government is in the people. Article 1, Section 1 of the Michigan Constitution. Let's use that. I mean, we can sit around and try to wait for legislative machinery to operate and that kind of stuff, but we can nip it in the bud if we get the referendum going. So, right after this is over, let's go to the library. If Marshall Township people want to come over, we can easily recompose what I've written, and copy and paste, and just do a couple simple changes in it, and you can make it applicable to Marshall Township. So everybody wants to come over, let's have a fiesta over there and get things going and nip this thing in the bud. We can do it, and you know, we just got to activate ourselves. Thank you.
All right, very good, thank you. Yes.
People who know me in this area know me as the farm lady. And I get really emotional about the farmsteads out there. They go back to the early 1800s, to the settling of this area. Granted, the land was taken from the indigenous people by a government that lied to them. Now, funny how history repeats itself, but I won't go there. Right now, MEDA is trying very hard to do everything they can to destroy as much of the standing structures in the area so that we will be weakened in our resolve to save them. What can we do to have a stop order so that they cannot destroy more? They're already using houses for training exercises. They're already talking about bulldozing.
They've already taken the electrical panels off of the farm.
Yeah, they're doing those kinds of things. Some of us can't even have access to do documentation for historic purposes and have been harassed. How can we get a stop order to prevent them from more destruction until an alternative proposal can be put forward? And I want to just say one thing. Others here might be in my generation. Do you remember a song from the 1960s that said, "Do not attack America, wear her down gradually. She will eventually fall under the weight of her own corruption"?
I think those, did that come out of the Soviet Union? I know we heard those types of things. They were saying that the lack of Christianity and the break apart of the family unit, and we would erode from within. So, yeah, I guess, I can't give any legal advice in terms of what you're fighting, but, continuing to talk with people who can assist you through that process. I think I've heard rumors from a lot of you in the community that there's been misinformation given to the property owners about threats of legal action that would be taken if certain things weren't happened that aren't necessarily true. So you'll have to check with an attorney to get to the bottom of those answers. But thank you for sharing your testimony with that. Yes?
So I agree with your interpretation of the state constitution, but what can we do to enforce that? Is there anything that we're working on in that regard, or is that all shut down?
Yeah, we definitely want to raise awareness to this from the Michigan Constitution, and I'm a little bit offended by some people who aren't here in the room with us today. Like we tried to have the media up in Lansing. They had a little bit of an excuse there. We tried to do it right after the governor was done, and coincidentally she ended up going about an extra half hour so they can make it over for our press conference there. But why none of the traditional media could make it here today for something so important as following the Michigan Constitution is quite offensive. We do have a few people who are recording here today, and we will get the word out there as best that we can. I don't know what it's going to take to get the media to actually care about the Constitution. They'll call me up to ask me about arbitrary and meaningless and benign issues. So why are we talking about that? Why can't we talk about big issues like this corporate elite process here in Marshall and the fact that it's not following the Constitution? To me, that's a big story, and it deserves attention. Now, media will come and listen to me talk several times. We'll have 5, 6, 7 of them will come. I guess Lansing's a little closer for them, but it was less than an hour for them to get down here. They could have been here. So I am disappointed they're not here. We will continue in the Michigan House Freedom Caucus, and a lot of our colleagues who aren't in the Freedom Caucus as well will be allies in continuing to bring awareness about Article 4, Section 30. And the problem is court precedent has been set to circumvent the Michigan Constitution, but I believe that is abundantly wrong, and I think we have persuasive arguments. What is the point of the Michigan and U.S. Constitution if you can always just work around them? Right? The U.S. Constitution is the ultimate arbiter for the purpose of protecting our rights. Any legislation that passes federally, anything in the Michigan Constitution, and anything that we pass here in Michigan law is all supposed to fall within the confines of the U.S. Constitution, and this legislation within the Michigan Constitution as well. We can't pass legislation that's not in compliance with the Michigan Constitution. Circumventing it is inappropriate, it's wrong, but it happens because those in power stand to gain, and the media's out there protecting them. It's repulsive, and everybody on both sides of the aisle, independents, the American people, and people in other countries should all be furious of what's happening with us not following the Constitution here. Did you have a question back here?
I just wanted to ask the gentleman if he needs voter signatures from across the state, or is this just the township?
Those are going to be locals who have to sign that. So Marshall Township and the city of Marshall might have 2 different referendums they're working on. So it's going to have to be people who live in the community. Yes, the township, if you live in the township, you'd do a township referendum. If you live in the city, you'd have to do a referendum in the city. Good question.
I'm not actually from here. I'm from Hillsdale, I live in Jonesville. But the question I have is the people that are wanting help in this area, is our government using taxpayer dollars to, would they be using taxpayer dollars to defend this? And if they are, these people, like if you said she'd have to see a lawyer, you know, she's gonna have to pay her own money out to a lawyer to fight this thing? And if so, I mean, is the state government using our money for this, or how's that working?
I don't know what the township or city might have in terms of having their own attorneys to fight against whatever operations were to be done from a group of people or an individual. But that is something that's frustrating. You know, it would be nice if there was a pool of money to help to fight against these things when they happen, so that somebody could bring forward a lawsuit and not have to worry about the expenses that come with it.
Is the state or local governments, are they using taxpayer dollars to implement?
The Marshall Township or the city of Marshall would have their attorneys who would advocate and fight for what their boards would have chosen.
Because I know some of this stuff's being recorded and stuff, because like from what I'm hearing, they never even talked to any of you people about this money that they're using. They're putting it in your community, and nobody ever, you know, knew about it, and they obviously they planned this thing probably over 2 years.
The township is not helping us.
I'm praying for all you guys, for sure.
This is so not fair.
One person in the township deserves our respect, and that's Dave Buss.
Yes. For those who don't know, Dave Bowser would be the supervisor of Marshall Township, and he was the only no vote on the board. I hope between him and members of the community, and perhaps what we're doing today, hopefully we can influence the board to reflect on the decision that they've made, to reassess the decision that they've made, and to take whatever action they can moving forward to right the wrong of their past.
This is exactly what we've been trying to do at the meetings, and it's like talking to the cement wall. We represent educated people. We represent wise people. They're not trusting us. They're not listening to us. And we're supposed to pay out of our pockets for a lawyer? No. No, that's what our township board is supposed to be doing, protecting us.
Yeah, and I certainly share that same frustration at the state level when we could block, 55-55 with them not having that one Democrat vote.
So
And the
what
Republicans gave it to them.
So what do we
So-
do next? What do you do next? What do we do next? There has to be more than just talking. There has to be action.
Well,
And it has to
yeah, and that's your relationship with your town. I would be happy to meet with them if anybody wants to schedule a meeting for me to come on over here and talk with the board members. I'd be happy to share my thoughts and perspectives on the proper role of government, economics. I'd be happy to talk with them. I'll do my part as best I can. What can we do? Yes.
As they did to none of the citizens. You know, maybe that would help. Maybe.
It's just getting crazy. We've been to a lot of meetings. Have we not been to a lot of meetings? Have we been listened to? No. Are we talking with wisdom, with educated minds? Yes.
There's more opposing than there,
There's
to
no
this
support
effort.
here. There's no support for that mega site in town.
But people are scared to speak.
Yeah. We have a few questions over here. We'll probably take we'll take 5 more questions because I think that's how many hands I see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can probably sneak in 6.
Just real quick. So my name is Wainwright. I live in Marshall Township, and I just want to make it aware that I was a former school teacher out on the east side, and before the pandemic, I transitioned, and I now work writing curriculum, but I work remotely. And I noticed since the pandemic, a lot of people work remotely, and they keep talking about these jobs are coming to Michigan, but what I've seen, I currently work for a Colorado-based, I work for the University of Colorado, as well as I work for the NSTA, the National Science Teacher Association in Virginia. So a lot of the work they're saying is going to be in Michigan, but I know that Ford is has the largest remote work for their highest paid employees. And so they say that these jobs are coming to Michigan, but I moved to Marshall because I liked the small town atmosphere. I left Livonia, those areas, because I didn't want to be in that manufacturing area to be there. And so they keep saying it, but I wonder if you guys could push and say, like, are you guaranteeing that those high-paying jobs are actually going to be Michigan people? And really push them to say it. Because what I've seen in the past is people say, like, we had a solar project come in, and they're like, well, we'll try to get Marshall people first. But if we can't find them, then we get them from somewhere else. And so I just wonder if you guys in the House and the Senate, if you guys can push them to say that those jobs are going to be actually Michigan jobs and not, oh, well, we hired people in Colorado.
So yeah, I hear your concern with that, and it's also roughly $700,000 per job we're looking at for this. It's an absolutely astronomical number. But what I would encourage people to look at that's from a little bit of a different angle. Of course, our population in Michigan, 10 million, has been quite stagnant at 10 million for decades. And you have to look at what goes unseen. The broken window fallacy, which Friedrich Bastiat wrote, phenomenal thing to read to see how, the idea that this creates jobs, I disagree with. It reallocates labor and it gives money so that they can have their bottom line profited at the expense of other companies, whether it's here in the Marshall area or throughout the state. I mean, we were talking $100, like I said earlier, for every man, woman, and child on average in order to fund this private company getting that massive of a handout. So $100 impact for every person in Traverse City, Upper Peninsula, Grand Rapids, throughout the state, that impacts everybody's pocketbook. Everybody's pocketbook. So it is very detrimental across the board.
Yes, sir. One thing I wanted to especially, I wanted to recognize the NTD News for being here. And I would say about them that they are the traditional news and the other people are fake news.
Very good. Very good.
It's an honor to have them here. And I want to say about this initiative going on in the community, notice there's almost no discussion the other way of trying to push back about the communist-Chinese collaboration here. You're hearing they're almost like they're not even addressing the issue. But pay attention to, they're trying to have this, we're all flat earthers kind of a thing. There's not going to be anything going on because of collaboration with communist China. But pay attention, this has come in with the birth of it, with arresting citizens for free speech. With citizens having to meet in private because they cannot be heard in their own public meetings. So if you don't think the communist Chinese influence is already here with it, it came with it. It's not whether or not it's going to change anything. It announced itself with it. And so I just wanted to ask the question, can't we take them to court and file suit against them for the violation of the Constitution? And the fact that right here, that we are here having to meet because they are violating our constitutional rights to free speech and to be heard at our public meetings.
Yeah, so we should continue to press on all fronts, and we're going to continue to push from the state and on Article 4, Section 30. But I want to actually go off script on another topic here for a few minutes, which is extremely important. And that's about, because NTD News, you said, is here. I want to say something about Falun Gong. And again, totally different topic, but my firsthand experience with hearing stories that are coming out. Because we all know about, child inhumane labor situations in China, but there's horrible other things going on in China too. Well, we heard, I was a staff member for 3 years before being a state representative, and we had people from the Falun Gong Society would come and they'd bring papers to us staff talking about what they are doing over in China is they are corralling healthy humans, bringing them, harvesting their organs to give them to other people who need their organs. It's absolutely disgusting. I heard that. They would come year after year. I think they might have came a couple times per year. And they were just trying to bring awareness towards this happening. And then I went to another conference, and I heard from a nurse who was over in China. And it was her job to prepare the bodies of living human beings to have their organs harvested. And now she's either the best actress in the world and had me sold, or she was telling the truth. That she fled when she got the opportunity. They told her, we will kill you if you try to get away from this. Because she didn't want to prepare bodies to have their organs harvested over in China. Now, people can say this is conspiracy theory type things if they want to, but I'm going to say it because it's what I heard, and I'm telling you what I heard. I heard from a lady who was in China and was a nurse and was forced to prepare bodies of living human beings to have their organs harvested to give to other people. This is a humanitarian crisis, and people aren't talking about it, and they need to be talking about it. It's not what we're here for today, but it's what every single American and human should care about. This is unacceptable in our world. Unacceptable. So I just wanted to share that story since you brought up NTD News. I heard yesterday you were coming, and I was like, I got to tell that story. So I hope that's helpful and to that extent. We had just a few questions left, and then we'll wrap it up here.
I'm Tina Deach, I'm from Jackson County, and I just wanted to say I stumbled across the website that's called Tactical Civics, and it's called America's Solution. And what it talks about is it's time for us to take matters into our own hands because the government is not going to do it. It talks about us forming grand juries and having grand juries go to these cities and councilmen and unseat these people. And for us to think about the fact that to protect these buildings that you are talking about, we may need to talk about a militia again. That word has been taken and turned into something bad, but we do have the right to form a citizen grand jury. And this really short video talks about it. It's called Tactical Civics, and it's America's Solutions. There's chapters being formed all around the country, and everybody should look it up.
All right, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
So that may be part of the answer to my question, but simply, we've seen a lot of conflicts of interest from people in Calhoun County, Marshalltown, City of Marshall, involved in this, their connections to MEDA and other things. Where do we go with that?
Well, we need, like I said, we're going to have to continue to press every angle. I'll focus from the state side. We'll focus from the state side. What you can do on the local level to continue to press on these different issues, that'll be your guys' decisions on that. So definitely fight on all fronts is good.
Comment on that. We do through the seedkeepers.net. We do have a defense fund. We are looking for a legal opinion on the legality of the Master 425 Development Agreement. So there is an opportunity. We are raising funds for that right now.
And those will be decisions that the community will make in consultation with attorneys. I'm barred from giving legal advice as a state representative. Yes.
I'm from Barry County. I sit on the Barry County Republican Party Executive Board. Have you contacted the precinct delegates in the city of Hastings and the two townships? Are they working to get resolutions adopted against this? You have more elected officials that you may not know about. Are you working with them, and are they working with you?
No. No, most of them are on board with this.
They are not on board?
They are on board with this project.
Resolutions for the county, Republican Party?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
Okay. I think we have just a couple questions here, and then we'll wrap up. I know you had one over here.
It's been documented that we have two Native American villages on the river, along with a burial ground that might be as old as the last ice age.
Mhm.
And yet, through reports from Ford and all the investigations, the drainage patterns, how they're going to, the scheduling of everything going on, 3,000 pages. I see nothing about an archaeological survey. Is that required?
So that might be something with Deagle and everything. I don't want to overspeak my knowledge in terms of what has to be done. And I know, firekeepers would be up there on the just northwest of this site here, and what property they have and what that comes into the mega site location. I don't know where their property boundaries.
Looking at retention ponds now.
Okay.
Instead of my beautiful river,
Yeah.
not my beautiful river, our beautiful river.
Right. Very well put. Yes. Okay, this is last question here.
Okay, I've been to almost all of the meetings as well. My son-in-law usually comes with me, and he wasn't able to make it today, but he did, take a sweep through Marshall and was able to talk to several of the citizens. At the Marshall City Council, the council members said that nobody is, let's see, all they are hearing is people who are pro-mega site, and that's all they're hearing from. But when my son-in-law did this sweep through, 60% of the people he talked to were against it, 10% were for it, 10% or 20% said, I don't even know about it. And the other 10% said, you know what, my life's so crazy right now, I can give a rip. So if 60% are against it, and that's just a spot check through the community, we can't understand why this is going through. The other thing is that so many members from, one from Fredonia Township and some from Marshall City are also on the MEDA board. So there's a conflict there, and it's like, of course they're gonna vote for it, because they're the ones that started it. So we feel like we've been ripped here, that this isn't fair, that this
Right.
isn't right. We didn't know about it, there was no vote, we didn't get a choice, they're making decisions for us, thinking that we're uneducated people.
Right, and like you said, even the community here is divided on whether or not they want this. To just think about the economic impact to the rest of the state, which clearly would not want to have their money go. It doesn't benefit the other parts of the state. So it's awful. It doesn't even have a clear support in Marshall. It is divided, and I think that those with a lot of the louder voices would make the economic arguments for why they think it's good, putting the environmental impact and the atmosphere in general and the national security issues to the side and purely looking at it from an economic perspective. But, Senator Jonathan Lindsay, excellent at economics himself. His father-in-law is Art Laffer, a nationally known economist. And I have a degree in economics. I think that maybe they should spend some more time listening to people like us and what we have to say.
Exactly, and Marshall doesn't even have a high unemployment rate. It's one of the lowest in the state.
Yeah. So it's going to be.
Doesn't even make sense.
I'm concerned about small businesses who are going to have a hard time finding employees in the area.
Just a quick thing specifically on the public opinion, right? It's easy to come out and say, however they want to present it. We think people are behind it or whatever. But we just saw a poll from Trafalgar, who's done a pretty good job in the past of getting things pretty accurate. This is a national poll where they asked the question about as broadly as you could, saying, do you think it's right for U.S. or state tax dollar to go to any partnerships that even have ties to China? They didn't even narrow it down to saying, actually, and the overall answer is that 75% of people in America, including, I think it was 65% of Democrats, 75% of Republicans, or of independents, and then Republicans were like 85%, said no, it's not appropriate to do this. So I really think they're gaslighting us when they say, now, you may get some people at a local level who are more interested if they are getting a tangible benefit, right? But I think that you really got to push back, and I'd be happy to share. I don't know if this group, it's the only other thing I wanted to say is I don't know if there's an effective chain of communication that's been set up, and we talk about collecting signatures, and maybe afterwards, I don't know, Justin, if you have some paper or something, get people to put their names on a piece of paper, or we could do some further outreach, but you got to empower people with some of this information because it is not a popular policy. It's the opposite. Most people instinctively see this and know. 75% of Americans see something like this and know that it's a bad idea, right? So I doubt it's much different, right, in the community of, Calhoun County or in Marshall.
Okay, I see one hand. This will be the last question. Afterward, we have, I'm going to go down to Marshall Township Hall and want to invite people to come down there if you want to. Don't feel like you have to. It's more if media wants to get photos of the mega site from there, you can see it from the Township Hall. I'm going to go down there. I'll answer a couple questions there, and we can continue conversation. We had a last question.
Why the state of Michigan isn't pushing more for using brownfields? We have hundreds of brownfields. We're right in town here.
So what he's talking about is blight.
We're using all our farm space for solar panels and manufacturing facilities. Big Rapids got a battery plant going. Got one north of Grand Ledge you want to have.
So his concern is brownfields.
The brownfield within 20 miles of their plant might even be their own plant.
Yeah.
But what I heard was it's cheaper to use new land than it is to take a brownfield. I mean, the state's got to start getting tough on this stuff.
Right, right. So his argument would be probably that, you know, where there's a brownfield or blight or a worn down area in a community, to revitalize that would make more sense than to come in with this big mega site project. So, all right, well, thank you all for coming out here today.
Pay attention, people. Real journalism still alive. NTD News.
Anybody like more